All right, everybody, Michael Cohen here with you on the Sports Talk Nation. Glad you could join us here today. Now, on today's podcast, I'm going to talk a little bit about what's going on in New York with their football team, one of their football teams anyway, the New York Jets. Now, as I've discussed in a Mets podcast with the recent hiring of Brodie Van Wagenen, it has not been a good time of things here in New York City for the New York sports team or the New York sports fan. Since we're focusing on football in this episode, you take a look at the two teams in New York. It has been a lot of fun. The Giants right now, of course, at 2-7. They had a nice win yesterday against the 49ers. And the Jets right now at 3-7 going into their bye week as they're coming off of a 41-10 loss to the Buffalo Bills. Now, there's been a lot of discussion about the future of head coach Todd Bowles. The Jets have come out. They said that they're going to keep Bowles around for the rest of the season, that he will not be fired until possibly, now, they're not going to go out there and say they're going to fire him on December 31st, but the assumption is that if things stay the way they are, then Todd Bowles is going to most likely lose his job in December. But to me, if I were the Jets, coming off of this kind of loss to a Buffalo Bill team that was 2-7, a Buffalo Bill team that is starting Matt Barkley, a guy who just came off the scrap heap 12 days before this game was played, against a Buffalo team that had scored before this game combined only 98 points on the season. This was a Buffalo team that struggled to score 20 points a game this year. Struggled to put up 20 points in a game. And the Jets allowed that same Buffalo team to walk into the Meadowlands and do whatever they wanted. First series of the game took only 2 plays before the Bills got in the end zone. We saw Buffalo pull out all the stops. We saw the trick plays, the fake punt, as Logan Thomas had completed a first down, the touchdown to Deion Dawkins, an offensive lineman. Buffalo did whatever they wanted. They pulled out all the stops in this game. They treated this game as fast and loose, while the Jets sat there and played tighter than a drum. And this has been a problem for the Jets really all season. And I was not a big proponent of bringing back Todd Bowles or extending Todd Bowles at the end of last season when they went 5-11. I know a lot of people looked at last year. They thought that the team gave a good effort. They thought the team was close in a lot of games. Yeah, they lost a number of close games last year. And that gave the Jets impetus to bring Todd Bowles back. That, to me, was a mistake. Then you take a look at what we got now, it was a huge mistake. Because this team has not gotten better. We have seen the rookie quarterback, Sam Darnold, who did not play in this game, obviously, with the foot injury. In the last few games before missing this week's game against Buffalo, had regressed from where he was at the start of the season. So we have seen him play poorly. We've seen this offense as a unit play horribly. They were 1 for 12 on third downs in this game against Buffalo. 1 for 12! 1 yard total offense in the first quarter in this game against Buffalo. And Josh McCown, who is getting paid $10 million to either sit on the bench and basically coach Darnold, for that matter, as a de facto quarterback coach, and then come in and play in games like this if needed, had no answers. 17 out of 34, went 35 through 2 picks. And you take a look and you combine what happened this week against Buffalo to what happened last week against the Miami Dolphins, where the Jets only scored 6 points. Again, their offense uncreative, can't move the football anywhere down a field. Darnold did not play well. He is taking snaps from a center who has a finger injury, and for whatever reason, Todd Bowles doesn't remove his center from the game. In fact, he starts him and keeps him in the game for almost the entire game. And I'm going to tell you right now, this is just my own personal belief. I have no connections into this at all, but I believe that when Spencer Long snapped that football into the ground and forced Darnold to pick the ball up, and then when Darnold looked up, he got knocked down by 3 or 4 Dolphin players, even had his helmet ripped off. I think that's the play where he got his foot injured. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong. That's just me. But the fact is, you allowed your franchise quarterback to play behind a center who was injured, and now guess what? Then your quarterback gets injured. So you have that. You have the Buffalo game, you have the Miami game, you have what has become now a 4-game losing streak, and again, every week it's the same thing. The team looks unprepared. The team is undisciplined. You see penalties left and right. The offense can't get anything going. And in the case in the game here against the Bills, the defense had absolutely no answer. So I understand that you have a lot of Jet players going out of their way to support Todd Bowles. We've seen Jamal Adams support Todd Bowles. We've seen Leonard Williams go out there and support Todd Bowles. But the fact is, if these guys support Todd Bowles this much, if they want to go out there and play for Todd Bowles this much, they got a heck of a way to show it. They aren't showing it at all. You don't show, if you are going out there and you want to play for your coach, you want to go out there and play and represent him, represent the organization the best you can, you can't have a 41-10 loss to a god-awful football team known as the Buffalo Bills. That can't happen. In addition to this is interesting. Apparently Jamal Adams, and as I just mentioned, he was the one who was one of the Todd Bowles defenders this week after the game. Apparently he had a radio spot today on WFAN in New York, and I will quote him. I will not play the audio for copyright reasons, but I will quote what he says here. Honestly, because he was asked about an article that was written up last year where Adams was critical of the 2017 Jets team. This was an article in Bleacher Report, and he raised concerns in that article saying that that guys were used to losing and that there was a culture of losing in the locker room. So obviously, the guys on CMB, Chris Carlin, Maggie Gray, Bart Scott, they ask him and say, "Hey, look, do you feel that way about this team, especially coming off of a god-awful loss to Buffalo?" And he says, quote, "Honestly, I could sit here and sugarcoat everything, but things have not changed. Obviously, we're still losing. I'm not saying we have guys like that in our locker room, but at the same time, it's not changing. It hasn't changed. We're still losing. At the end of the day, we're going to get it fixed. The sun will shine." And asked the team quit against the Bills. And Adams said that's something I can't answer, unquote. But the fact is, he goes out there and says things have not changed. Yet we want to keep the head coach around for 6 more weeks. Things have not changed. Offense can't get moving. Quarterback's play has been, relegated to dink-dunk passes by Jeremy Bates and this wonderful offensive coordinator for the New York Jets under Todd Bowles. Things have not changed. The defense gets torn apart by Matt Barkley, of all people. It is the second time this year the Jets have looked unprepared defensively for a quarterback that they weren't ready for. Things have not changed. And yet we continue to have guys go out there and support Todd Bowles. You have an organization that supports Todd Bowles. I get it. You want to have continuity. I get it that you don't want to fire the guy and bring in a promote from within with an interim head coach where you don't feel comfortable with the guys that you have on staff, which is an indictment of everybody on the staff for that matter. I understand that to a degree. But at the same time, if this culture is not changing, and if there's a losing culture in this locker room and an acceptance of losing, don't you think some heads need to roll and roll right now? Don't you think some change has to happen right now to get this thing moving? Forget the playoffs, forget everything else like that. Get the season moving towards the right direction right now. I know that there are fans who want the first-round pick and want to move up in the draft for that matter, say let's just lose every game. But if you're a player out there and you play for the Jets, you want to win some games here. You got 6 games left. You got 3 games in the division. You want to win some of these games. You want to have an effect on other teams' playoff picture. There's an old saying, if I'm not going to go to the playoffs, I'm going to make sure I ruin someone else's postseason. Where is that attitude right now for the Jets? There is no attitude like that for the Jets. There is no killer instinct for the Jets because the Jets have adopted the mantra of their head coach who stands there in the sideline, arms folded, expressionless, as if he was waiting for a bus at 6 in the morning. If I were the Jets, I would have done it now. I would have fired him right now and sent the message that losing and complacency isn't acceptable. The losing culture isn't acceptable. And the idea that, and I saw this idea floating around, and I'm not going to blame any This is the idea I'm sure that writers were told by people within the organization that there is a concern about Darnold's development, that by firing Todd Bowles, that it would somehow hinder the quarterback's development. Bullcrap. That is absolute bullcrap. Changing the coach now. I'm not saying you have to fire Jeremy Bates as well, maybe even though he deserves to go with himself. But by firing the head coach, there is precedent to show you that has really no negative impact on any young quarterback that I can think of, at least recently anyway, in the National Football League. 3 years ago, the Los Angeles Rams fired Jeff Fisher during Jared Goff's first year in the NFL. Goff was horrible his first year. Okay, he was terrible. A lot of people were ready to consider him a bust after his first season. People forget that. Okay, they fired Jeff Fisher with 3 weeks left in the season. Did that have a negative impact on Jared Goff's development for the rest of that year in 2016? Absolutely not. They go out there, they bring in Sean McVay, clean slate, and now Jared Goff is one of the top quarterbacks in the league. The Rams right now are 9-1 this year. We're 11-5 last year. Possibly a Super Bowl team maybe this year. Certainly a contender for the Lombardi Trophy. That's for sure. See? So I guess that coaching change did not have the negative impact on the quarterback's development that we are being sold here with the Jets. Even the Cleveland Browns of all teams. And you talk about dysfunction. The Browns define dysfunction. Even the Browns fire Hugh Jackson in the middle of the year this year, and a lot of people were saying they did it because of the miscommunication that was happening between Hugh Jackson, the offensive coordinator Todd Haley, and the friction these two guys were having and the negative impact that would have with these two guys still on the team on their young quarterback, Baker Mayfield. So they said, let's just blow it up now. And what has Mayfield done? He's gone out there. He's had a great game this week for the Cleveland Browns. 3 touchdown passes, and the Browns beat the Falcons this week. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that if the Jets had fired Todd Bowles, Sam Darnold is going to let up Patriots in 2 weeks. I'm not saying that at all. My point is to say that keeping Todd Bowles around would have a positive impact on Sam Darnold long term. That's ridiculous. That is absolutely ridiculous. The Jets have to go out there. They have to clean house here on the coaching staff. Bring in a new head coach going forward into 2019. And that's why I think even an in-season firing, as rare as it is, it gives you as a team and organization an upper hand to go out there and start looking for other coaches and start to compile a list. I'm sure the Jets are compiling a list as it is anyway, but it makes it be known that you're open for business to allow candidates out there. The question is going to be is, do the Jets give Mike Maccagnan the power to go out there and find the head coach? Remember, Maccagnan was hired at the same time as Bowles, and both of them have been required to answer to Woody and Chris Johnson. Are they going to keep that same formula together? If Maccagnan stays, are they going to keep that same kind of idea together where the general manager and the head coach are on equal footing? Or are they going to let Mike Maccagnan go out there and pick his own head coach? That's going to be a big part of this if the Jets are going to move forward without Todd Bowles as the head coach. That's a big part of it. And also, keep in mind, a lot of this roster, most of this roster is Mike Maccagnan players. So do the Jets trust him moving forward with, nearly $90 million in cap space, a little more than $90 million in cap space moving forward in 2019? I think that's a very, very fair question right now for this Jets team moving forward. That's got to be a big part of this. One, not only are they going to fire Todd Bowles, we assume now will be the end of the year, but are they going to let Mike Maccagnan pick their next head coach? Do they trust Maccagnan to be the guy who's going to shop for the groceries? And what's the power structure between Chris and Woody Johnson? Now, there are a lot of strong candidates that the Jets can consider. Obviously, they need to go offensive-minded head coach here in this day and age, where you have offenses throwing the football all around the ballpark. You have teams scoring putting up record numbers offensively in points and in yards, yards thrown, passes completed, passes thrown. all kinds of offensive statistics that are just exploding all over the league right now. So it would make sense for the Jets to kind of jump in the bandwagon there and go with an offensive guy. They don't have to, but it would make sense. Couple of names to watch out for. Kind of ironic that this name was mentioned the day of the Jets-Bills game, and that is John Harbaugh with the Baltimore Ravens. Now, there was a story that leaked out on Sunday that Harbaugh and the Ravens could be mutually parting ways at the end of the season. Right now, the Ravens are 4-5. They could be going for a rebuild going into next year. Joe Flacco, of course, they're probably going to release him at the end of this year, and they're going to go with the young quarterback there in Jackson. He's probably going to be their guy moving forward. Does John Harbaugh want to be working with a young quarterback next year? Or basically, what would amount to being a rookie quarterback next year with a new GM, a new front office, as Ozzie Newsome's going to retire at the end of this year? Probably not. So there's a name. John Harbaugh would be a big name for the Jets to go out there and try to get. It would be that experienced head coach, guy who has had a lot of good seasons in the NFL as a winning head coach, guy who's been both a defensive guy and a special teams coach before this. He's won a Super Bowl as a head coach. That would be a really good hire for the Jets if they want to go that route. Another guy would be, you've heard this name thrown about from a lot of fans, for that matter, and a lot of media pundits, is John DeFilippo, the offensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings, let me just pull up their stats here just 1 second. I'd rather just take a look at the stats, because I know the Vikings, certainly one of the top offenses in the league so far this year, as they are, well, they're kind of middle of the pack when you look at it. They are, ranked 15th in the NFL in total offense, but they are ranked 8th in pass offense this year, and they're one of the top scoring teams in the NFL this year. And DeFilippo's guy has been credited as being a quarterback guru. He was with the Eagles last year, was a quarterback coach when they won the Super Bowl, working with both Carson Wentz as well as Nick Foles. Got a chance to work under Doug Peterson last year, so he is going to be a guy that is going to get some consideration. Another name that's going to be floated out there a lot is Matt LaFleur, who is the offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans. Now, I don't know too much about LaFleur other than that he was with the Rams before this as their offensive coordinator. He's worked with Sean McVay, obviously. He's worked with guys like Jared Goff. He's worked with Marcus Mariota. So he's worked with a lot of young quarterbacks in the NFL. You know, is he at 38 years old ready to jump into this head coaching role? We'll see. Hey, look, I mean, Sean McVay was 32? He's a head coach right now. So, 38 years old as a head coach, the way things are going in the NFL right now, that's what it's trending towards. It's going with the millennials now as head coaches in the NFL. So anything is possible there. And the way the Titans are playing right now, if they keep it up and find a way to get to the playoffs, then you're going to hear a lot more of Matt LaFleur's name mentioned in coaching searches in the National Football League. Another name that's going to be banted about, or at least should be, is Dave Toub. Now, Toub is certainly a little bit older than some of these other guys that I've mentioned. He's 56 years old, but he is the special teams coach for the Kansas City Chiefs. He is right now the assistant head coach and special teams coach for the Chiefs right now. And look, the Chiefs have had, of course, an unbelievable season this year. We all know what they've done offensively. Their defense has had their issues, but special teams has been a strong suit for them. And Dave Toub has been a finalist for a couple of other jobs in recent years. Bears job, Colts job in the past. He will be a name to watch out for as well. So those are just a few of the names that you're going to hear. I even heard Eric Bieniemy, who was a running back a long time ago with the Cincinnati Bengals, who is now the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs under Andy Reid. I've heard that his name get thrown out there in a lot of coaching searches, so I'm sure he'll get an interview. So those are some of the names that are going to get considered. But the fact is, the Jets have to move on. And it's time for them to go out there and find a new head coach, to find someone who can motivate this team, to find someone who can inspire players to go out there and put forth a good effort week in and week out. When you see a team go out there and play flat against a horrible Buffalo Bills team, that to me tells you all you need to know about whether that team is motivated to go out there and play on a week in, week out basis. And to me, the Jets look like a team that is not motivated to go out there and play week in, week-out basis. They look like a team that couldn't wait to get out of the ballpark last week, and they got the Patriots coming up. They got them twice. They got to go to Buffalo at the beginning of December. They got the Titans, who are now starting to play good football. The Packers and the Texans. Not going to be easy. Maybe they squeak one win out. Who cares at this point? The fact is, the Jets season is now going right down the drain. This is more about trying to get through this thing and getting Todd Bowles and this coaching staff out of there. I would have pulled the plug right away. The Jets are going to wait until the end of the season, and we'll see how the chips fall where they may with New York. Now, just very quickly on the other New York team, the New York Giants. A nice win for the Giants yesterday, winning 27-23 over the San Francisco 49ers. Eli Manning orchestrating his 36th come-from-behind victory for the Giants. And you know what? That was a weird game yesterday. The 49ers, I'm not going to say they dominated early, but they were playing very well. I thought Nick Mullins did a nice job for them. The 2 interceptions both came off of deflections that the Giants were able to get, but all New York could get on those 2 turnovers was 3 points. So it's not like the Giants did a lot with those turnovers by the San Francisco 49ers. And the Giants had a lot of opportunities. They had a goal line situation early in the game, a chance to take the lead. Couldn't get anything going. Couldn't get a ball into the end zone. Had a kick and settle for a tie the game up at 10. And then there was an opportunity for Odell Beckham Jr. to have a touchdown that he dropped at the 3-yard line. That would have given the Giants the lead earlier in the game. So the Giants had a lot of opportunities in the early part of this game to take the lead. Didn't happen. And it looked like the 49ers were going to walk away with this thing until Eli Manning was able to engineer that big drive. Now, one thing that Eli did that was you kind of wish he would do more of is that he hit Evan Ingram on a big 31-yard completion on 2nd down. He kept going throughout this game going to Odell and trying to force it to Odell, who was in double and triple coverage all day. And that was a problem for the Giants. So I like the fact that they changed it up a little bit on that last drive. They went to Ingram a couple of times, including that big pass play. There was a weird sequence at the 2-minute warning where both teams were getting called for holding penalties. Just an example of how bad these two teams are. But the big play, Eli hitting Saquon Barkley for 23 yards. For all you Saquon Barkley haters out there who wanted the Giants to go out there and draft Sam Darnold instead of Saquon Barkley, man, this guy keeps producing for you. I don't know. He keeps producing for Big Blue if it does Saquon Barkley. 23-yard catch and run to set up the touchdown pass from Manning to Sterling Shepard as the Giants take a 27-23 win. It's only their 2nd win of the season, I understand that, but you take a look at that schedule for the Giants, they could win a couple more games this year. They get the Buccaneers this week, the Cowboys at the end of the season, the Redskins are kind of inconsistent. I could see the Giants getting to at least 4 or 5 wins. It's not great, but considering where they were at 1-7, they're going to win some games and feel pretty good about themselves at the end of the season. But make no mistake, this is a Giants team that's not very good. This is a Giants team that needs to fix that offensive line. This is a Giants team that needs to blow up that defense and restructure that defense big time. And they need to go out there and find the next franchise quarterback for this football team, because Eli is getting up there in age. But in the interim, a nice win for a team that was desperate for a win in the New York Giants, having lost 5 in a row, 6 in a row, whatever it was before that game. So that's the status of New York's 2 floundering football teams. Giants get a nice little win. The Jets implode and fall on the sword against the Buffalo Bills, and the Jets still refuse to fire their head coach. Anyway, folks, Mike Cohen here with you on the Sports Talk Nation. Remember to like and subscribe right here on the Sports Talk Nation on YouTube. Follow us online, facebook.com/OpenMicProgram. And remember to also follow on Twitter @OpenMicNJ. Hit like and subscribe button below, folks. We'll talk to you next time.